There is a precise moment in every child's life when they stop sharing things. One day they come home from school, and when you ask, "How was your day?" they simply answer, "Fine," without looking up. And you think it's just fatigue, a phase, something that will pass? But beneath that monosyllabic word, a silent test is taking place. The child is checking whether you are still a safe place to land with their real emotions. The complicated ones, the ones that cannot be solved with a quick hug before rushing off to the next activity. Here's the question we don't ask often enough. Why do children stop talking? It's easy to blame age, hormones, or the modern world. But the truth is more uncomfortable. Sometimes it's our words, or worse, our silences, that build that wall. And we do it believing we are doing the right thing. You see, parenting has this hidden paradox. The actions that seem most loving are often the ones that push children away the most. Mistake 1. Performance interrogation. Your child comes home, and before they even take off their backpack, you ask the question you think is harmless. How was the homework? Not, how are you? Not, what did you learn today? But how was the homework? And in that question, however well-intentioned, there's a hidden message. My care for you depends on what you produce. The child senses it. They may not articulate it, but they feel it in their body, like a subtle shift in the air. And they begin to think your love is conditional on results. So when they fail, get a bad grade, or forget their homework, they don't come to you, they hide. Psychologists call this phenomenon conditional love. It's when a child perceives that parental affection depends on their performance. Studies are clear. Children who grow up with this perception develop higher levels of anxiety, perfectionism, and self-criticism. Not because parents don't love them, but because they have learned that love must be earned, not freely given. And this is a wound they carry for years. Mistake 2. Emotional correction. When a child says, "I hate my teacher," we jump in like firefighters. You don't really hate her, you're just frustrated. We reframe, we correct, we tame the emotion until it becomes something more digestible for us. But for the child, what they feel is, your emotions are not okay as they are. You must change them to make them acceptable. And so they stop sharing what they truly feel. They learn to say only what will not be corrected, altered, or minimized. There is a huge difference between validating a feeling and approving a behavior. You can say, "I see that you're really angry with her. Do you want to tell me what happened?" Without adding, "But you can't hate her." Because the moment a child feels heard without judgment, something inside them relaxes. And that space of relaxation is where trust is born. Mistake 3. The comparison trap. That seemingly innocent phrase, "Your sister at your age was already reading harder books." Or worse, "Why can't you be organized like Tyler?" We think we are motivating, encouraging. But what a child hears is, "You are not enough as you are. You should be someone else." And this message is devastating because it comes from the person the child most desperately wants to be seen by. Not seen as they could be, but seen as they are. Children build their identity primarily through the mirror of their parents. If that mirror constantly reflects "you're not enough yet," the child does not develop a solid sense of self. They develop a sense of inadequacy. And this does not create motivation. It creates insecurity. Or worse, it creates that armor of defensive arrogance that some children wear to hide how small they feel inside. Mistake 4. Absent in presence. Perhaps the most common mistake, one that goes almost unnoticed in daily chaos, is emotional multitasking. Your child begins to tell you something important, and you nod while loading the dishwasher, scrolling through emails, or thinking about tomorrow's meeting. They notice. They notice that your gaze is not present. They notice you are listening with half a brain. And in that moment, no matter how much you say, "I'm listening," they learn something very different. My words are not important enough to stop the world. There is a cruel paradox here. Children open their hearts at the most inconvenient times, while you're cooking, while you're late, while your mind is already full. They don't do it to annoy you. They do it because that moment for some reason feels safe to them. And if you miss too many of those windows, if you too often say, "Not now, I'm busy," the child stops knocking. Not because they have nothing left to say, but because they have learned the right moment never comes. Mistake 5. Immediate rescue. The child shares a problem, and before they even finish, you already have the solution. It's instinctive. It's loving. You want to protect them, help them, spare them pain. But in doing so, you take away something fundamental, the chance to discover they can handle it themselves. Because when you solve it too quickly, when you intervene before they've had a chance to think, the hidden message is, "I don't believe you can manage this." And a child who hears this too often becomes an adult who constantly doubts themselves. The truth is, children don't always need solutions. Sometimes they just need to be heard. To know someone has noticed their frustration, fear, or confusion. And in that space of pure listening, without judgment, without agenda, something magical happens. They begin to find their own answers, not because you gave them to them, but because they felt safe enough to seek them. Mistake 6. Performance pressure. Every drawing becomes an artistic opportunity. Every kick of a ball becomes potential talent to cultivate. We enroll children in countless activities, push them to excel, watch them with expectations we don't even realize we hold. And slowly, imperceptibly, we turn childhood into a marathon of results. But children are not projects. They are not resumes in progress. They are human beings in one of the most delicate phases of their existence, the phase where they are discovering who they are. When everything becomes performance, the child stops exploring. They stop taking risks. They cling to what they can do well and avoid what might make them fail. Not out of a lack of courage, but because they have learned that their value is measured by results, not the process. And this is a silent tragedy, because the most creative, innovative, courageous people we know are those who weren't afraid to fail. Mistake 7. The child as confidant. There's a more insidious trap. Treating children as emotional confidants. Sharing adult problems, financial worries, marital tensions. It seems honest. It seems intimate. But for a child, it's an overwhelming burden. Children don't have the tools to process adult anxiety, and when exposed too early to grown-up worries, they become anxious children who feel responsible for holding their parents' emotional world together. Psychologists call this phenomenon parentification. It's when roles are reversed and the child becomes the emotional caregiver of the parent. And this creates adults who cannot say no, who carry others' problems, who sacrifice their own needs for fear everything will collapse if they don't. It is not love we give them. It's a burden disguised as intimacy. Mistake 8. Continuous correction. Every mispronounced word is corrected. Every incorrect detail is fixed. Every imperfect attempt is redone. And the child learns that nothing they do is ever good enough. Not because it isn't objectively, but because there is always someone ready to tell them how they could have done better. And over time, that external critical voice becomes the internal critical voice, the one that whispers, "You're not good enough," even when no one is there to say it. The truth is, children need space to be gloriously imperfect. They need to know they can try, fail, make a mess, and parental love will not waver. Because it is in that space of accepted imperfection that true learning is born, not in the fear of failing, but in the freedom to try. Mistake 9. Competing with the screen. The child is showing the Lego castle they built for hours, and you nod while responding to a message, scrolling Instagram, checking email. You think you're multitasking, but what the child sees is, you chose the rectangle instead of me. And the message they receive is devastating. Whatever is on that screen is more important than me. Children notice everything, especially when your gaze drops just as they reach the most exciting part of their story. They don't say it out loud, but inside they keep score. And when the screen wins too many times, they stop competing. They stop trying to capture your attention. Or worse, they begin seeking it in ways you don't want. Extreme behaviors just to make you lift your eyes from the phone. Mistake 10. Anxiety about the future. Finally, there is anxiety about the future. Constantly projecting every small present mistake into a future disaster. If they forget their backpack now, how will they manage in college? If they don't study enough now, they won't get a good job. We think we are preparing them, but what we are doing is stealing their present, because an 8-year-old shouldn't carry the weight of decisions that concern their 20s. They should be able to be an 8-year-old. Our task is not to ensure they never fail. It is to teach them that mistakes do not define their worth, that they can fall and get back up. That failure is not the end, but part of the process, and this is learned only through example. When they see us fail and recover, when they see us apologize, when they see us imperfect and still worthy of love. In the end, it all comes down to this. Children don't need perfect parents. They need present parents. Parents who listen more than they speak. Parents who validate before correcting. Parents who love unconditionally, without agenda, without hidden expectations. And when a child feels this kind of love, they do not close off. They open. They do not push away. They come closer. They do not build walls. They build bridges. Because in the end, a child's silence is not rebellion. It's protection. It's their way of safeguarding the most fragile parts of themselves from a world that always seems ready to judge, correct, or measure them. And if we want to break that silence, we don't need techniques or strategies. We need just one thing: to be the safe place where they can land exactly as they are, without having to become something else to deserve our love. If you enjoyed the video, let me know in a comment and subscribe to the channel for more. See you soon.